Good to see everyone here tonight. Isn't it good to be a Christian?
Amen.
Everybody have a good day?
Amen.
Some of you look kind of tired.
Amen.
William of Ockham was someone who lived a long, long time ago in Europe, and he became he got in a lot of trouble with early ecclesiastical leaders in that time because he believed that the church should primarily be about saving souls and not get into a bunch of political things. And they got so upset with him, they ran him out of town, and he went to Asia Minor, and he settled down, and he developed what is known now today as Occam's razor. Occam's razor is
Are you on?
I don't know. Occam's, now?
Yeah.
Occam's razor is a set of principles that business companies use today to get through all the extra stuff and get down to what's at the heart of the matter. It's kind of like cutting off the fat and getting to the meat. And we like that principle. We like it when people get to the point. You like that when preachers get to the point, I guess? And especially in our culture, sometimes we like things that are even news, headline news. We like things like Reader's Digest that kind of cuts through all the extra stuff and gives us what we really need. Jesus was a master at getting to the heart of the matter, cutting away all the extra stuff and getting down to the most essential things that we needed to know. And on the Sermon on the Mount, he does that. In verse 1 of chapter 5, it says, "Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountainside. He sat down, his disciples came to him, and he began to teach." And he starts off with some very fundamental teaching about who we are at the root of our discipleship, who we need to be. Sometimes Christianity is understanding just what we need to be. And sometimes focusing on being poor in spirit, or being meek, or being pure in heart, or being a peacemaker. Those are things that are important for us to focus on. Because Jesus said if you want to be happy in the kingdom, if you want to find true satisfaction in being a Christian, it's not going to be an easy road. It's going to be a difficult road. But you'll be blessed, you'll be happy if you have these attitudes. And that's what we've been looking at. Friends suggest that I maybe do more than just one, so I'm going to do the final four tonight. I'm going to go pretty fast here in a minute. But these are things I think we as Christians should return to and sometimes examine ourselves and think about, are these qualities progressing in me? Because whether they decrease or increase is kind of up to us. And we don't want to be has-been Christians. I have been poor in spirit, and I have been meek, and I have shown mercy, and I used to be hungry and thirsty for righteousness. But these have to be consistent, current attitudes. Jesus showed these qualities throughout his life. We have to show the same qualities consistently throughout our following of Christ. And they give us kind of a measurement. We can know the length of something or the size of something. You know, if you see these, sometimes you go in the gym and these bodybuilders have got these tape measures wrapped around their biceps, right? A lot of those biceps are bigger than my quads. But they're looking for, where do I measure up? Is it the same as it was last week? Or is it improving? The Beattitudes give us a sense of measurement about who we are to be. These kingdom attitudes. So we're going to look at these last four real quickly tonight. First of all, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And I like to look at this as the boomerang blessing. When you show mercy, it comes back to you. One principle of Scripture is you reap what you sow. When you show mercy to others, you receive mercy. Jesus tells a parable about someone who has a big debt. He's forgiven the debt. Then he goes and encounters someone that owes him a debt, and he shows no mercy. And Jesus makes the point that if you don't show mercy, you're not going to receive mercy. But when you show mercy, you receive it. Well, first of all, God is merciful. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. We sing this song. His mercies never come to an end. God, in His nature, is merciful. He's a loving God. He wants to extend mercy to those who need it. In James chapter 5, it says, "As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord was full of compassion and mercy." He suffered all the things he suffered, and in the end, he got all his possessions back, multiplied. He got his family back. Justin's been reading through Job, so we were talking about the very end of Job the other day, and I was showing him one of Job's daughters was Jemima. I've always thought that. Did you know that Jemima was in the Bible? But God gave everything back. God, who is rich in mercy. It's more than sympathy. It's the ability to get right inside the other person's skin. It's to walk around in someone else's moccasins. It's more than just sympathy. It's empathy. It's trying to understand. One of the 7 habits of highly successful people, Covey wrote in his book, was seek first to understand, then to be understood. It's that attitude of trying to understand what someone else is going through before you try to be understood. In Hosea 6:6, it says, God says, "I desire mercy." It's not about sacrifice, but He wants mercy and acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. We can come to church, we can come to services, we can break the crackers and drink the juice and go through all of those outward expressions, and those are important, but what's most important to God is who we are. And if we do all the right things, but we're not people who show mercy, we've missed out on what God is really looking for. And then in verse 8, He has shown me, O mortal, what is good, and what the Lord requires of you, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Very powerful verse, but one of those things God is looking for in us is to be people who love, not just exercise, but who love mercy. And the parable of the Good Samaritan shows us mercy. They're asking Jesus about who's my neighbor. And Jesus tells them this parable of the Good Samaritan. The priest, of course, goes around, and the Levite goes around, but the Good Samaritan stops, takes care of this person who's been beaten up, takes him to the inn, takes care of him, and Jesus answers the question. The person who is the neighbor, who is the one who showed compassion, who showed mercy, saw something that needed to be done, but what he extended to the person was mercy. And Jesus tells the expert in law to go and do the same thing. And again, when Jesus comes, He's going to separate the sheep from the goats. And what is at the heart of that passage is, when I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you invited me in. When I needed clothes, you clothed me. When I was sick, you looked after me. And when I was in prison, you came to visit me. There was a need there, and you saw it and you did something about it. Jesus is charging us to be people who are always active in showing mercy, showing compassion. It should be at the heart of who we are. And then, of course, the story of the father who is rich in mercy. His son squanders everything, decides, I want to go back home. The father runs to him, hugs him, kisses him, put a ring on his finger. But the father shows him mercy. He didn't have to forgive him, but he shows that mercy. And so we have to offer more than just words. We have to care and get involved in people's lives. That's what Christianity is about. It's what God is looking for. We see a need and we do something about it. So just a few more passages that talk about it. The story, of course, where the wicked servant didn't show mercy. Jesus says, shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant just as I had for you? Think about the mercy and the grace and the forgiveness God has given us. Why can't we do the same for those who are indebted to us? And sometimes, during this season, sometimes we're around people because we're family that may be people that have been difficult for us to forgive. People that have been difficult for us to show mercy to. So sometimes there's some direct application during this time of year for us to be Christ-like in that way. And so Jesus said, woe to you, teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you hypocrites. You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, cumin, but you neglect the more important matters of the law. What are they? Justice, mercy, and faithfulness. So what's really important to God? Joel says, rend your heart, not your garments. We can base our relationship with God on performance, or we can base it on giving Him the things that He's really after. And it has to do with heart. It has to do with faithfulness, justice, and mercy. Jesus says, go home to your people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how much He has had mercy on you. In Mark chapter 5, when He heals the demon-possessed man, he wants to go in the boat with Jesus, and Jesus says, no, I want you to go let people know how much mercy He has had on you. And then Jesus says, because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. And then in Romans chapter 1, it says, if it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is leading, do it diligently. And if it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. And then wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, full of submission, mercy, and good fruit, impartial and sincere. And then finally in Jude 1:23, save others by snatching them from the fire. To others show mercy mixed with kindness, hating even the clothing that's been stained by corrupt flesh. Jude 23. So, showing mercy. What is difficult about showing mercy to other people?
Selfishness.
Okay? Selfishness. What's difficult about showing mercy to other people?
They don't always deserve it.
Okay. They don't always deserve it.
We don't always know that they need it.
Okay. Sometimes we might not know people need it.
Sometimes we think we're better than they are.
Okay.
Make yourself a little bit vulnerable.
Okay. Yeah, you've been to funerals that I've done. You've heard me say before. There's a book called The Touch of Wonder, and the first chapter he talks about caring, and most of us spend our whole lives turning what we might call self-caring into what we might call other caring. And it's not easy to be an other carer, because when you care for other people, you drop your guard, you're vulnerable. And many times when you care for other people, sometimes they take advantage of that. And all of us have sometimes offered our help to people, and maybe it's been taken for granted. Maybe they, not been fully appreciative. And sometimes people that need help sometimes aren't the easiest people to help. And sometimes it's easier to kind of put up a wall and to be on your guard. Even in preaching, sometimes, when you're in ministry, sometimes people, guys and I'm lucky here because you guys treat me very well, so I'm not talking about myself. But I know guys that get out there in ministry, and sometimes people aren't always kind. Sometimes people can be a little tough. And preachers sometimes, I remember Robert Oglesby used to say to me, you can begin to work up a guard where you don't let people in. And you have to be careful, because there's a fine line about where you become so guarded, then you're not as effective in trying to help people. But when you're another carer, sometimes you have to fight that battle. But the more things you care about, and the more intently you care, the more alive you become. And he uses this analogy of his. We're just going to look at this one tonight. We're not going to do all four, because I was hurrying too much, and that's not what I want to do. But he has this picture, and he's a rider in Carolina, his daughter, and he and their dog are out on the beach, and she says, "Isn't it neat how the ocean cares for the land?" And so they began to talk about that, how this water comes on the land and lets itself be absorbed and then lets itself be released and go back out. And he got this picture in his head of, when we truly care about others, we allow ourselves to fully be involved, fully be embraced in the process. Jim McGuigan, one of the preachers at Sunset, many of you are familiar with him. He spoke at Red River quite a bit. When I was taking some classes at Sunset, and then Love a Christian, there was a small group that was going to go to Idaho and be a team there. And we met. They were interested in me going. I didn't end up going. I stayed at Love a Christian, and my path took a different direction. But he talked about this book called On Caring. And I remember getting a copy when I was younger, and about once a year I reread that book. It's very deep. Especially the first time I read it, maybe it was too deep. But as Christians, that's who we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be people who know how to care and that do care. Paul says, don't do anything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider other people better than yourselves. You have to be that kind of person to show mercy. And then later on in chapter 2 of Philippians. He says, I'm going to send Timothy to you who takes a genuine interest in your welfare. People in the world look out for their own interests, but not those of Christ Jesus. And we talk about being holy, and we talk about being different. You've heard me talk a lot about being countercultural. And sometimes I talk about other things. But part of us being different from the world is that we are people that show mercy. We see a need, we try to do something about it. We are people that care. And there are some situations that are easy to care about. There are some situations that are difficult to care about. This morning, I don't always say this, but this morning, there were 4 people here that I talked to that were all close to tears. And when I left the building today, after everybody had left, I was walking up, I thought, there's some people that are really hurting. You probably wouldn't pick up on who they were or what was going on. But there are people, sometimes we're not even, like you said, Kathy, we don't always know that there's a need there. There are people around us all the time that hurt. Jesus had the ability to see people in a unique way. And that's why we don't look at people from a worldly point of view. That's why we try to look at people through the eyes of Christ. But think about the encounters Jesus had. And the woman at the well, the Zacchaeuses, the woman caught in adultery. These are broken people. And next week, some of those people may be healed up. But there's going to be some new people that are broken. And sometimes it's people, preachers get broken, elders get broken, people that do a ton of work around here get broken. And we're supposed to be looking out for each other. And part of us showing mercy to each other is not just when everything is black and bleak in somebody's life, when they're like the guy that got beaten up by the robbers. Sometimes it's doing the things that we're supposed to do as God's people on a consistent basis. And so over 23 times in the New Testament, there are these one another passages. Bear each other's burdens, pray for each other, confess your sins one to another. All these one another responsibilities. When I do that, I'm showing mercy. When I don't do that, I'm not showing mercy. Sometimes I think we limit the application to being merciful to those big situations. But showing mercy is in the little things and in the big things. Jesus said, "Blessed are you if you show mercy." So that's the lesson. And this time of year, there are opportunities for us to show mercy. And maybe sometimes the more difficult ones are to forgive people that need to be forgiven. Forgive people that maybe it's difficult to show mercy to because of all the water that's gone under the bridge. But that's what Jesus is calling us to. That's when those relationships that have been severed, and Jesus said we're to be about mending fences. When someone's offended us, when we've offended them, we go to them and we try to make things right. That's part of being a peacemaker, but it's also part of that process of showing mercy, showing forgiveness to people. Maybe you're here tonight and you're not a Christian, or maybe there's something else we can help you with. But maybe during this season, maybe think about people that you should show more mercy to, that maybe you've justified kind of holding the grudge or not fully forgiving someone, because we're to be people that are full of mercy and who love mercy as we stand and sing.